Hi guys, it's Debbie. Happy New Year. In my last video, I spoke about what I considered some of the worst high-profile films of 2016. Today instead, I would like to speak about what are, in my personal opinion, some of the best films of 2016. As I said in my previous video, everything I say in these videos reflects my own personal opinion, and having the same opinion on films or on any other topic is unrealistic. On the contrary, having different opinions and points of views enriches cinema and makes it much greater. So I'd really appreciate if you left a comment here below telling me whether you agree with my choices or if you would have awarded different films. One of the problems of doing these end of year recaps is that a lot of films are released during the Christmas period towards the end of the year. This means that most of us get to see these films the following year. So for example, I would have included The Revenant in this list as one of the best films of 2016. But it actually is officially a 2015 film because it was released, I think, around Christmas time or the end of the year, although we all saw it in 2016. This is also why I haven't been able to include La La Land, Moonlight or Jackie in this list, because unfortunately they're still not available where I live. I'll probably get to see them in the following weeks or months, which is really painful for me because I know that they're supposed to be really good films, but that's to explain why they won't be included in this list. So let's start with what I consider one of the best films of 2016, which is Arrival. Arrival is a science fiction film starring Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner, who portray respectively a linguist and a physicist. One day, 12 mysterious extraterrestrial pods land on planet Earth, and the two characters they portray are invited to join a team which is trying to communicate with the extraterrestrial beings inside these pods and trying to understand what their purpose on planet Earth is. The beauty of Arrival is that it doesn't focus on the potential warfare between humans and extraterrestrials, but instead it prefers to question the feeling of fear that us humans have towards the unknown, and the way we tend to consider planet Earth as our possession. We also tend to consider ourselves the most civilized race in the universe, so anything that even slightly tries to communicate must immediately be considered a threat and intellectually less advanced. Amy Adams has had an extremely productive year, and she beautifully portrays Dr. Louise Banks, this linguist, which discards conventional forms of communication and tries to interact with these extraterrestrials without immediately considering them a threat. So she tries a different approach to the one we would immediately have towards something which is different from us. I've uploaded a much more detailed and spoiler-free review of Arrival, so I leave that linked if you want a deeper analysis of this film. The next film I would like to speak about is Eye in the Sky. Now, theoretically, Eye in the Sky would be a 2015 film like The Revenant, but unlike The Revenant, which was actually available to spectators in 2015, Eye of the Sky was widely released in the United States and in the UK completely in 2016, so I consider it part of the 2016 films. Eye in the Sky is a thriller film starring Helen Mirren, and it is actually one of the last films with Alan Rickman, which unfortunately passed away last year. Helen Mirren portrays an army colonel which leads a military group which for months has been surveilling different members of a terrorist group. One day they managed to find all of the different members of the terrorist group in one same location, so they start to prepare an attack onto this group through the use of military drones. Now, the way in which I described the film up till now might make it sound as the usual action film about warfare, but it actually isn't limited just to this. It's about calculating collateral damage. It's about considering if there are civilians inside the area which will be hit, questioning whether there is a greater good which will compensate for eventual sacrifices of innocent people. It shows the strict line of command which must be followed, but also the responsibilities which in the end no one seems to want to take on. Eye in the Sky has not received extensive media coverage, but it definitely is a different film which really leaves us with a series of questions. It really leaves us thinking at the end of the film, because it's not the usual film about war, about the strongest nation imposing itself on a third world country. It's not about who is stronger. It's not about just pressing buttons. It really leaves us with a series of questions of what happens behind these operations. What happens behind the news, what happens behind the final explosion. So definitely check it out because it's really, really worth watching. The next film I would like to speak about is Sully, which speaks of the real story of the plane that landed on the Hudson River in New York City back in 2009. Now, before seeing Sully, I wasn't expecting much from the film because I thought I just knew everything about the story, but instead it really, really positively surprised me because it shows us the landing, it shows us the fear of the people on board, the near-death experience the passengers went through that icy day in New York. So it really gives us all that anxiety, that fear, but it also focuses on the less known side of the story because Captain Sullenberger, Sully, portrayed by Tom Hanks, and his co-pilot, portrayed by Aaron Eckhart, are always seen as heroes. The press has always portrayed them as heroes. They had to undergo trials regarding the fact that the plane could have potentially landed safely back at the airport without needing to land on the Hudson River, risking everybody's lives and terribly damaging the aircraft. So the film focuses on everything that happened behind the headlines, behind the cameras, and it also shows us the post-traumatic stress that both the pilots suffer. So it really conveys that fear of death that we all have deep down inside of us, the relief of surviving a near-death situation, but it also shows us the nerve-wracking days and months and years after this event in which our mind remains haunted by the memories of this experience. The film also teaches us to always question what the press tells us and not just to swallow any news that we are fed. The next film I would like to praise is Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Rogue One is the latest installment in the Star Wars saga, and chronologically it is set just before the first Star Wars film ever released, which is the 1977 film Star Wars A New Hope. Rogue One speaks of a team of rebels which tried to obtain plans to destroy the Death Star. The Death Star is incredibly powerful and it is equipped of a super laser which is able to destroy entire planets in a matter of minutes, making it the most dangerous space station in the universe. Rogue One has been highly praised, but it has also received a lot of criticism by who has considered it just a plot filler. But if we remove it from all the advertisement, from all the hype surrounding its release, if we remove all the merchandise that has filled every child's letter to Santa this Christmas, and we look at the film just as it is a masterpiece that really keeps the retro vintage look, that keeps us so attached and faithful to the Star Wars saga, the feeling of teamwork, the issue of trust, and it also underlines in an extremely dark way just how powerful and dangerous the Empire can be, because we are used to just thinking these are our heroes and they can easily defeat the enemy. That's just how simple it is in our mind. But instead, Rogue One shows us everything that the rebels go through to try and obtain the plans to the Death Star. So Rogue One is not just a plot filler regarding how these rebels tried to obtain the plans to the Death Star. It is dark and painful. It shows us everything that they had to go through, the difficulties of even just trusting one another inside the same team, and the fear of an empire which unfortunately reminds us so much of terrible regimes we know so well from our own past. Just as a rival, I have also uploaded a review of Rogue One, and you'll find that linked if you want to have a deeper analysis of the film. The last film I would like to speak about is also the latest film I have seen, which is Passengers. Passengers is the third science fiction film on this list, and it stars Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt. As a matter of fact, the film stars basically just these two characters, because apart from a few minor roles, the film is totally concentrated on just these two people. Lawrence and Pratt are Aurora and Jim, two of the 5,000 passengers which are travelling from planet Earth towards a new planet, Homestead 2. All these passengers are kept hibernated in special pods because the journey will take 120 years. Unfortunately, a series of events, Aurora and Jim wake up too early, extremely too early, because they wake up 90 years away from the destination. I wasn't expecting much from Passengers, but it turned out to be a deep analysis of the human mind, the choices it makes when it's pushed to the limit, the concept of blindly trusting another person, the feeling of isolation, and also the difficult concept of our life both being extremely short but also terribly long. So these are what I consider some of the best films of 2016. As I said before, unfortunately I haven't been able to see La La Land, Jackie or Moonlight. Hopefully I'll manage to see them in the next few weeks. And also let me know with a comment here below whether you agreed with my choices or if you would have awarded different movies. See you soon in a new video. Bye!